Hi, I'm Rahel Philipose and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express News Show. In this episode, we talk about the Supreme Court's verdict on the tussle between the centre and the Delhi government. We also give you a quick update on a large-scale drug bust by the Indian Navy and the Narcotic Control Bureau. But first, we talk about the Karnataka election results. On Saturday, the Congress party won the state elections with a thumping majority, winning 135 out of the 224 seats.
देखिए, कर्नाटक के चुनाव में एक तरफ क्रोनी कैपिटलिस्ट की ताकत थी, दूसरी तरफ गरीब जनता की शक्ति थी और शक्ति ने ताकत को हरा दिया और यही हर स्टेट में होगा. Congress party. And so the Congress will now replace the Basavaraj Bommai-led BJP government that had been in power in Karnataka since 2019. Now, last week in the lead up to the results, we had talked about why the state is important for both the Congress and the BJP and how winning these elections could affect their future prospects. For example, the Indian Express's Liz Mathew had told us that Karnataka is seen by the BJP as the gateway to the southern states where the party has struggled to make inroads.
See, Karnataka is the only state where BJP has come to power or made some successful imprints in terms of electoral performance among the southern state. Karnataka is known as BJP's gateway to the south. Although BJP's ideological parent, RSS, is very strong in Karnataka as well as in Kerala, electorally they could not make much in any other states, whether it is be it Tamil Nadu, be it in Kerala, be it in Andhra or Telangana.
And so for the BJP, winning Karnataka had been a prestige issue. And on the other hand, the Indian Express's Manoj CG explained to us that for the Congress, it would come with a whole range of benefits.
Immediately, this is an election year where the party will have to go for crucial elections in several other states. So it gives that momentum to the Congress. Again, next year, there is a Lok Sabha election coming up. The party can, build on this momentum. Secondly, South India, the only state where the BJP is in power in South India is Karnataka. So it is a BJP Mukt South India, that kind of a, campaign which the Congress can project. And the Bharat Jodo Yatra, Mr. Gandhi has just completed his Bharat Jodo Yatra, and after that his conviction in a defamation case and his disqualification from parliament. So given all that, this victory would immediately be turned into a kind of response to all those political developments. Then Karnataka is a big state. It has 28 Lok Sabha MPs. As on today, the Congress has only one MP from the state. Given that the Lok Sabha elections are scheduled next year, if the party is in power, it can hope to, improve its tally in Karnataka, which will be, in effect lowering the BJP's tally because it will be a straight fight, mostly a straight fight between Congress and the BJP. And then adding to the opposition kitty, the Congress, the opposition is now in talks to, put up a united front against the BJP. Now the Congress will have bragging rights because the party is in power only in a handful of states now and it has been losing elections very frequently. So it will now have something to, tell the other opposition parties, see, the Congress is not, you cannot write off the Congress party. See, we are bouncing back. So that bragging rights the Congress will get. And then overall, it adds one more state to the opposition kitty when it comes to the GST Council or when it comes to key legislations, a constitutional amendment, which needs the support of half the states for its passage. And also all those issues also, it matters if one more state goes to the opposition.
Now, to ensure their victory, both the Congress and the BJP campaigned extensively in the state. In fact, Liz told us that the BJP's campaign was initially lagging behind, but it picked up pace soon after national leaders like PM Narendra Modi and Amit Shah joined the campaign rallies. Though these efforts fell short in the end, especially in the face of the anti-incumbency it was facing and the kind of campaign that the Congress party ran this time. In fact, when we spoke to Liz shortly after the results were announced, she told us that a major problem that the BJP faced was the confusion over who would lead the party in the state.
Of course, Basavaraj Bommai, who replaced B.S. Yediyurappa in July 2021, the Bommai was supposed to lead the party for the election. They appointed him because he was also from the Lingayat community, which is the major support base of BJP in Karnataka. and also he had a clean image as well as considered to be a good administrator. So they expected Bombay to have a hold in the party and the government in 2 years so that the party can go to the people seeking a mandate to come back to power in 2023.
But Bomai, unfortunately, could not get that kind of support or acceptance that the party was hoping for, especially in comparison to B.S. Yediyurappa, who is the main reason that the BJP first came to power in the state. In fact, in many ways, he was the BJP in Karnataka until he resigned in 2021 over multiple issues.
So for the BJP's campaign, it was B.S. Yediyurappa from Karnataka and Prime Minister Narendra Modi from the center who were leading or faces of the BJP in the campaign. So for a voter, an average voter, both these leaders are not going to be there post-election because Yediyurappa was not contesting election. Prime Minister Modi, of course, is not going to be in Karnataka. So that credibility of the leadership, the BJP lost in that count one. And, the cadre did not know, even the people did not know, like who is going to lead the party, whether Bombay is going to remain as the CM or someone else will come in place to replace Bombay post-election. That uncertainty really caused too much for BJP in many areas.
And Liz says this is not the only reason for the BJP's loss. The party's message was also not very clear to the voters.
See, BJP started on development note. BJP insisted that we will go on development plank only for the 2023 election because BJP had realized from their surveys as well as their own assessment, they had realized the polarizing issues like hijab or halal meat issue, these things will not work for the party across the region. So the party had given instruction to the chief minister and the government that BJP would go with the development agenda for the election. You come up with a good report card before people. That is the only way. And popularity, prime minister's initiatives, welfare schemes for the poor, these three things together would get BJP a mandate to remain in power. This was party's calculation.
But the party did not stick to the development agenda because somewhere along the way, they realized this approach is not working.
Because against Prime Minister Modi's welfare scheme, the main rival, the Congress, had to offer better welfare measures and it had a more remarkable and more credible report card, in terms of its government which went out of power in 2018. Siddaramaiah government has programs and the initiatives including the 10 kilo rice scheme. People still remembered about it. People still talked about it. One complaint when I was traveling in Karnataka, I heard from poor section of people were, this Siddaramaiah's 10 kilo rice has been cut into 5 kilo by the BJP government.
And it is reasons like this that really hurt the BJP's chances. And the other major highlight of the campaign that many thought would help the BJP was the Bajrang Dal issue. Congress in its manifesto had said that they would take decisive action against organizations like the PFI and Bajrang Dal, and BJP took that as an opportunity to hit out at the party. In fact, the Prime Minister during his rallies said that the Congress wants to lock up Bajrang Bali, that's Lord Hanuman.
लेकिन दुर्भाग्य देखिए, जब मैं आज हनुमान जी की पवित्र भूमि को प्रणाम करने के लिए आया हूं, उसी समय कांग्रेस पार्टी ने अपने मैनिफेस्टो में बजरंग बली को थाने में बंद करने का निर्णय किया है.
And Liz says that this confused the party leaders. They didn't know whether to focus on development or on religion. And according to her, they couldn't even counter the Congress's narrative, which was focusing on the allegations of corruption against the BJP.
The Congress, much ahead of the election, what they did was their campaign started on this corruption issue. So the alleged 40% commission government, which kind of stuck to BJP throughout the campaign, and the party with all its might and all its wide network, and the party as well as its ideological parent RSS could not counter that.
In fact, the BJP didn't even focus on the work done by the Bommai government and instead chose to focus on the popularity of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And Liz says that this over-reliance on the PM's image has actually not been working for some time now.
It didn't work in Himachal. It didn't initially since 2014, if we look at BJP's electoral history, it had lost many elections. It lost Maharashtra, it lost Jharkhand, it lost Bihar first, and even Haryana, they couldn't come back with the same number. Even Tripura, for that matter. Tripura in the recent election, the BJP's strength has gone down and BJP barely scraped through and the opposition was so in disarray. That is why the BJP could win there or retain power in Tripura. Gujarat, of course, it's a different story for BJP. There is no opposition per se. But that's what I said. Wherever this Modi factor works in the state, only where BJP state unit is robust, BJP state unit has relatively popular leaders. Other than that, it doesn't work.
Liz says that the BJP will have to change its strategy and reduce its reliance on PM Modi and the policies of the central government.
Because you must have realized by now that the voters in India, they respect for federalism because they see the state and the center differently. They distinguish between who has to be in power in the state and who has to be in power at the national level. So as long as there is no opposition, major opposition, credible opposition, a formidable opposition at the center, the BJP can survive at the center. But for the state, the party will have to change their strategy. They will have to reduce their over-reliance on, over-dependence on Prime Minister Modi and the central program. And at the same time, the party has to, what this BJP 2.0 or BJP 3.0 has failed to do is to bring up a second-rung leadership even at the national level. So there is no answer for the BJP, like who's after Modi. So the same way many states, the BJP once had a very strong, very remarkable second-rung leadership. We know during BJP, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, L.K. Advani time, what these two leaders have done was they came up with a strong leader. They encouraged the second-rung leadership. Now the party has stopped doing that. The party and its policy, everything is centered around one or two personalities. When the organization is over-dependent on Union Home Minister Amit Shah, the party as a whole and the state governments are relying on Prime Minister Modi.
And this absence of second-rung leaders is yet another reason why the party failed to come back to power in Karnataka. Liz says that the party did bring in new candidates to counter the anti-incumbency sentiments and asked the older leaders to step aside, but that only confused the voters even further.
If you had to do that, you should have done it earlier. The party tried to do that kind of change, a major shift, which would definitely shake the apparatus in the last minute in the eve of election. So this has, for an average voter, Congress was, despite all the differences between its top leaders, Siddaramaiah and D.K. Shivkumar, the party looked like a united unit, a fortress. I mean, according to one BJP leader, the Congress looked like one fortress, properly secured, united, versus the BJP divided house with senior veteran leaders leaving the camp. For many people, it was very visible that the BJP state unit is not ready to take on the Congress in the election, one, and BJP state unit is not prepared for coming back to power and present a 5-year-old stable government. So the people obviously chose the united, promising, and, according to some of them, a visionary manifesto the party had, the agenda the Congress had. So they went for that. So to sum up, it is like BJP defeated the BJP in Karnataka.
And this is the reason why she says that the BJP will have to go back to the drawing board, change its strategy, and build a second rung of leadership, which can provide the right feedback to the party.
Even in the parliamentary board, we have also written several times. It was once all these leaders, Nitin Gadkari, Shivraj Singh Chauhan, Arun Jaitley, Venkaiah Naidu, Anand Kumar, Sushma Swaraj, who had a voice, who had the guts to say the top leadership decision is not correct. They could correct them. They could say that this is wrong. They could call spade a spade. No such leaders are there in the apex decision-making body of the party now. So BJP will have to have an introspection. Like I said, the party can survive as long as there is no alternative, there is no credible or formidable party at the center or a coalition at the center. But, the party cannot, even ideology-wise, strategy-wise, only Hindutva will not work in the state. The Karnataka election has proved this is a time the BJP is trying to expand to the south. And in south, it is proven your welfare measures versus the regional parties' welfare measures. Any day, the regional parties in the south have better welfare measures and welfare initiatives than the BJP at the center. So when you are trying to club this Hindutva plus welfare measures, it is not working. It is not getting successful as it is in the northern state. The party has to realize that if BJP wants to be a national party with presence all across the country and it wants to retain its dominance in the national politics, the BJP leadership will have to do an introspection and make changes in their strategies and approach.
And next we talk about the Supreme Court's verdict about Delhi. For about 8 years now, the AAP-led Delhi government has been embroiled in a power tussle with the centre. At the heart of this battle is the question of who controls the transfers and postings of bureaucrats in the capital. The Supreme Court put this matter to bed last week when it pronounced a verdict in favour of the Kejriwal-led AAP government in Delhi. In this segment, the Indian Express's Mallica Joshi joins us to talk about the Apex Court's verdict, its implications for the AAP, and how the BJP has responded. So, Mallica, to start with, can you talk about the 8-year-long tussle between the centre and the AAP government in Delhi?
So, in this particular instance, after the Aam Aadmi Party came into power in Delhi in 2015 with a full majority, and it was a very thumping majority, they won 67 out of the 70 assembly seats. There were a few transfers that were done, and there was some tussle between the then LG Najib Jung and Arvind Kejriwal's office over which officer should be placed in what position, essentially. The LG at that time said that the control lay with his office and not with the elected government, because Delhi is not a full state. It is a union territory with special powers. Following that tussle in May 2015, the MHA passed a notification which essentially said that apart from areas like land, police and public order, which as per the constitution are under the control of the centre through the LG, even services would now be under the centre. So the power to transfer, the power to post people, to decide which officer is posted in what department, all of that, the notification said, was now the domain of the centre through the LG's office. And this was protested against very vehemently by the Aam Aadmi Party, saying that if they do not have the power to decide or control the responsibilities of officers, their government is crippled.
Right, and later the Aam Aadmi Party challenged this in court, but it also got no relief. And this matter of Delhi services especially remained undecided, right?
Yeah. So when we talk about public order, which is among the things that are under the control of the LG, it's about maintaining law and order in the city. Police obviously does not come under the Delhi government. It comes under MHA and the LG. So the Delhi government has no control over land policies, your master plan. Also, it is not the custodian of the government land in Delhi. Services essentially means, transferring and posting officers in departments within the government. So that power was undecided, and it remained undecided for several years. And finally, after it first went to a 3-judge bench and finally went to the larger 5-judge bench, which gave its order last week.
Right. And this ruling was in favor of the AAP government. Tell us, what exactly does this ruling say?
So, this order essentially states that Delhi is not like other union territories. It has special power and special character. And that the LG will only have control over public order, police and land. And more importantly for the Delhi government, the elected government has the power to exercise control of services. So essentially what this judgment did is, bring clarity into the issue of services, which since the beginning, since when the Delhi got its legislature in 1991, was never really adjudicated upon so clearly. So that is the beginning of the tussle and now finally seeming conclusion to it.
Okay, and Mallika, do we know what kinds of changes we will see because of the verdict?
So, immediately what changes is that if, let's say, the IAS officers, they will still be posted to Delhi by the center because it's an Indian Administrative Services cadre. But once they are posted to Delhi, which department each of them is posted to? Let's say Officer X has been brought to Delhi and she is, given a particular department, let's say education. That call will now be taken by the Delhi government, by the Aam Aadmi Party government, which was not the case in the past few years. And, the Supreme Court judgment also actually talks about why it is important for the civil servants to be under the control of the elected government. So they bring up the concept of accountability. If an officer posted in the government is not accountable to the ministers of the government, the entire structure of the executive sort of is not in line with the legislature. So what we had seen in Delhi over the past few days and what was AAP government also filed affidavits about this in the Supreme Court, where they claimed that ministers have been writing to their officers, let's say the secretary, the principal secretary, and they have called meetings, but the officers have not shown up. And there were instances where the AAP government had claimed that they had asked for files from the officers, but their requests had not been complied with. So what we were essentially seeing was a breakdown in the relationship between those who make the law, in this case for Delhi would be the AAP government, and those who have to implement it, the executive, the officers. There was a complete breakdown in that relationship, which is why this whole question of accountability came in, which the judgment also addresses. And it says in the judgment that the officer is accountable to the minister, who in turn is accountable to the people who it has been elected by.
Right. And Mallika, what do you think this verdict would mean for the AAP government, considering that it's been in this constant tussle with the center?
So the AAP government obviously sees this as a big win. For them, one of the big takeaways a senior leader told me was that it essentially means that the chief minister or the ministers in the Delhi government are no less than a chief minister in any other state. Because so far, Delhi's position, as I said, is not that of a state, but it's not also that of a union territory. It has a special place. And this is also because the Delhi is the national capital. So there are divisions of power for that reasons as well. While their assessment on, a Delhi chief minister and ministers being equal to those in other states might not be entirely correct because of, how we spoke about them not having control over land, over police, law and order. But this control over services is obviously a big breather for them. What they are expecting now is more cooperation from officers in various departments, which they claim they were not getting so far, and especially so in the last year or so.
Okay, and what kind of actions have we seen the AAP government take since the Supreme Court gave its verdict last week?
So within hours of actually the Supreme Court verdict coming out, Chief Minister Kejriwal addressed a press briefing where he said that there would be a complete bureaucratic overhaul in the city. He spoke about how a lot of officers in the past had not been working in the interests of the government and of the people, how they had hampered work that the government wanted to do. He also said that the government would now be lean, thin, and more compassionate to the issues of people. These were the words that he had used. And I think an evidence of that within minutes of, again, his press conference, an officer who was actually the secretary of the services department, the government passed an order saying that he would be transferred and also posted a new officer in his place. However, this has run into trouble again with officers in the LG's office saying that the processes for effecting this transfer were not followed. And that has now come under a cloud because the government has now again gone back to the Supreme Court asking it to ensure that its order is implemented in the city.
Right. And now, Mallika, considering how bad the relationship is between the AAP government and the bureaucrats, do we know what kinds of concerns they've raised?
Since AAP has come into power in 2015, there has been a lot of push and pull with the bureaucracy. They've had very public fallouts with some bureaucrats, one of whom accused some of the MLAs of actually assaulting him in the chief minister's home. So the relationship has never been very good to begin with. Now what has happened is that there is, of course, some apprehension amongst them. But a few voices have also said that, what the Supreme Court judgment essentially does, and this is the Constitution bench. So it interprets the Constitution and it rules based on what the Constitution has said. And if the Constitution has said that services should lie with the government, and that is the interpretation or that is the verdict of the Supreme Court, then it is our duty to essentially just follow that role and be completely neutral. That said, there is, of course, apprehension, especially after the CM's comment of a bureaucratic overhaul. There are fears of mass transfers. So I think for them, it's just a wait and watch for now.
Right. And can you tell us how the BJP has responded to all of this?
So the BJP has said, the Delhi unit of the party said that it welcomes the order of the Supreme Court, but it said there was an apprehension that AAP would now, quote unquote, set up a shop for transfers and postings in the city, which means that they are also apprehending a massive, massive shake-up where a lot of officers they might have thought are not, in line with AAP's vision of how to run things, might get posted out, might get departments that are not as important, in the larger scheme of things. The center really has not reacted right now. But in the BJP also centrally, some people have tried to say that this is just, an interpretation of what the Constitution says. And on the ground, these things were always being followed. That, however, is not correct. Because at least in the past month and a half, any file related to transfers, postings, where an officer has to take charge, were not even being sent to the chief minister. In some cases, some of the ministers have said that there were times when we would find out from the news that a particular secretary or a particular bureaucrat had been transferred out. So that is, of course, going to change now.
And in the end, we give you a quick update on a drug bust. The Narcotics Control Bureau, or the NCB, on Saturday said that the agency and the Indian Navy seized 2,500 kgs of high-purity methamphetamine from Indian waters in what turned out to be one of the biggest drug seizures of the country. The seized drugs are estimated to be worth rupees 12,000 crore in the illegal drugs market. A statement issued by the NCB said that they also detained a suspected Pakistani national. According to the NCB, the methamphetamine seized was sourced from the Death Crescent, which comprises Afghanistan, Iran, and Pakistan. It also said that this was the first time that an Indian agency intercepted a mothership carrying drugs. The intelligence wing of the Navy got information about movement of a mothership carrying large quantities of methamphetamine from Makran Coast in Balochistan. These motherships usually carry large quantities of narcotic contraband and distribute them to vessels over the route. The agency said, and I quote, "Assets were mobilized and a close watch over the input was maintained by the team. The continuous intelligence collection and analysis resulted in identification of a highly probable route that the mothership would take for distribution of contraband. An Indian naval ship was deployed in the vicinity. Based on this input, a large seagoing vessel was intercepted by the Navy. Methamphetamine concealed in 134 sacks was recovered from the ship," unquote. The agency also said that a speedboat, which was occupied by a Pakistani national, was intercepted, and the recovered narcotics, the Pakistani national, the intercepted boat, and some other items salvaged from the ship were brought to Kochi by the Navy on Saturday. They were handed over to the NCB for further action. The seizure was part of Operation Samudragupt, which targets maritime trafficking of drugs originating from Afghanistan. The NCB said approximately 3,200 kgs of methamphetamine, 500 kgs heroin, and 529 kgs hashish have been seized as part of the operation so far. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was hosted by me, Rahel Philipose, and written and produced by me, Rahel Philipose, Shashank Bhargava, and Utsa Sarmin, who originally spoke to Liz Mathew for the Karnataka story. It was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone who you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.